Late last night, my daughter, her friend, and I had spent the evening at a drag show in Galveston, TX. After the show, we decided to drive down to the beach for a few minutes before we headed home. The beach we usually go to was kind of a far drive from where we were, and it was almost 3 a.m., so we decided to pull into a beach access that we had never been to before. I pulled in and drove around in a circle to shine the headlights in a 360 so we could kind of scope out the area before we got out. I parked next to a trash can kind of close to the dunes. As soon as we got out of the car, I felt a heaviness, hard to explain, just something felt weird, and my intuition was to get back in the car immediately and leave. I wish I would have. I didn't find out until later that my daughter and her friend had the same feeling. There was no moon, so the only light was from a few beach houses on the other side of the dunes. I keep a huge baton flashlight/taser in my car, so I grabbed it and we walked down to the water. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw my daughter's friend turn around really fast and look back towards the car. She had heard a sound coming from the direction of the dunes. She grabbed my flashlight and pointed it towards my car, and she and I both saw something standing right up against my car. Neither of us were exactly sure of what we were looking at because it seemed to fade away when the flashlight hit it. It's so hard to describe, but it was like you could only see it in the edge of the light from the flashlight. Like it only existed between light and dark. I grabbed the flashlight back and shined it directly where it was standing, and it was gone. Just kind of disappeared. It was very surreal. This heaviness that I felt when we first got there was suddenly unbearable, and we all knew we had to leave as quickly as possible, but we were all kind of frozen in fear. We slowly made our way back to the car, but as we got close, my daughter and her friend saw the same figure crouched down next to the trash can with its back facing them. It was eerily silent as we ran to the car, jumped in, and sped off. It was complete silence in the car for a few minutes until we got down the road a bit. Then I asked if they wanted to talk about what we just saw, and we all just collectively freaked the absolute fuck out, tears and everything. My daughter only saw it from the front for a split second, but her friend and I looked directly at it and we both described exactly the same thing. Judging by the height of my car, we estimated it to be at least 6 feet tall. It was very tall and slim. It had a human shape, but the face was just kind of blank with 2 black spaces where eyes should be, like the eyes were there, just really sunk in. Its face kind of had the shape of a long Gandalf type beard, but it was fleshy, not hair. It had really long arms, one of which was resting on the top of my car on the back passenger door. It seemed to be wearing what looked like a robe, but it was part of the creature. Like his flesh was in the shape of long robe sleeves. No hands, just long fleshy flaps. It was just standing there kind of slouching, like it wasn't standing up all the way. And it just stared blankly at us, almost through us. When I say a heavy feeling, we could physically feel some sort of presence as soon as we had gotten there. I personally have never felt so much anxiety, fear, and terror in my life. I have no idea what the fuck we saw, but there is definitely a lingering wary feeling through my whole body since it happened that I can't seem to shake. My daughter says she feels the same way. Every time we talk about it, we get chills. I investigated a fatal fire in the middle of nowhere in the woods. This house was set off so far into the woods it took me forever to get back there on a dirt road. I pull up in front of the house, and of course the whole thing is boarded up. But the house is huge and old. I got creepy feelings just looking at the place. The front door was boarded up with a bit I didn't have, so I had to climb through a window in the back that the family had left open. As soon as I stepped foot in the house, I felt like everything was wrong. I shouldn't be there. I shouldn't walk around. And I sure as hell shouldn't take pictures. It was that feeling like when someone is mad at you and the slightest thing will set them off, so you just kinda sit there in silence hoping they'll forget you exist so you can do your thing. But I was there to do a job, and so I started to do my walkthrough and take photos. This was clearly a set fire, and the guy who died had been murdered by his grandson. But I still had to document each area of origin thoroughly and do diagrams and all that because fatalities are a big deal. The entire time I'm walking through the house, it feels like there's someone standing behind me, looking for me to slip up just once. Like when your boss is there the one time and he's just staring at you, waiting on you to fuck up so he can correct you. I finished the first floor and headed down into the basement where the guy had died. It was mid-July and it was hotter than shit on asphalt. But as soon as I got to the basement, it was like somebody turned on the AC. Of course, it was pitch black in the basement because A, it's a basement and there's not much light down there on a normal day, and B, that's where the bulk of the fire was, so everything was pitch black. I walked through the basement into the bedroom. The fire hadn't reached the bedroom as it had been started at the stairwell, which acted as a decent chimney to prevent fire spread throughout the basement, but it did get hot enough in this room that the outline of the guy's body was in the carpet right next to his dog's body's outline. As soon as I entered that room, every single alarm bell in my mind was screaming, "Get the fuck out, you moronic jackass. Have you not seen a goddamn horror movie? This is where the angry ghost of Gramps murders you with a hatchet." But I had a job to do, so I stayed, took my photos and collected samples, searched the whole basement for anything to give an idea why this would happen. I frequently had to leave the basement to go outside to give my brain time to stop freaking the fuck out. And every time I walked back in the house, everything in me was telling me to leave. The whole time I was in the basement, it was like someone was standing in the corner, just watching me. And of course I was working by my tiny ass flashlight that's basically useless, so that didn't help much. The last time I left the house, I crawled through the window and noticed that it had gotten cloudy and really windy while I was inside. Thinking it was a random Midwestern storm, I walked around the deck and looked out into the yard to find a buck just fucking staring at me. I'd never seen a deer look angry, but it just looked furious. I just kinda shrugged my shoulders and half waved, and it turned and walked away. As soon as it walked away, the wind died and it started to get warm again. Creepiest house I've ever been to and weirdest shit I've ever experienced.